Recovery Elevator, episode 582.
But it feels different this time. Doing it with somebody that you love and care for, and leaning into supporting and encouraging one another, and then doing the work.
Welcome to the Recovery Elevator Podcast. My name is Paul Churchill, and this is how we quit. On today's episode, we have Ron. He's 67 years old, from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and he took his last drink of alcohol on February 29th, 2026. Incredible work, Ron. If you're in your first 30 days of sobriety and want to share your story on the Recovery Elevator Podcast, I'd love to get you on. Email info@recoveryelevator.com. Now, while chatting with today's interviewee, Ron, he mentioned he's had more sobriety time in the past, but he says it feels different this time. When I asked him why, he said that it's because he's not doing it alone anymore. It's so awesome to hear, Ron. So the power of this podcast, albeit you may be walking alone in a park, is realizing you're not alone with your struggles with alcohol. You're not alone in your goals to quit drinking. Yeah, it's just me chatting with Ron, but you're alongside of us on this journey, and we're so thankful to have you here listening. And if you do want to put a face to a name, we're putting up short video clips of the interview on the Recovery Elevator Instagram page. And before we get any further, let's hear from SoberLink. There's something about the new year that feels like a collective sigh of relief. The calendar flips, schedules can breathe, and you finally have a moment to take stock of how far you've come and where you want to go next. If you're ready to take your recovery to the next level, I have one word for you: SoberLink. SoberLink isn't just a breathalyzer. It's the connective tissue between sobriety and trust. The difference between are they sober and I know they're sober. Here's how it works. You test at scheduled times throughout the day. Built-in facial recognition confirms it's really you, and tamper sensors prevent you from cheating. Within seconds, your results are shared with your support network, like your sponsor or loved ones. Recovery's hard enough. Proving your sobriety shouldn't have to be. Visit www.soberlink.com/recovery-elevator to sign up and claim your $100 enrollment bonus. Again, that's soberlink.com/recovery-elevator to claim your $100 enrollment bonus. There's a link in the show notes as well. Okay, let's get started. You have probably heard the quote, "The opposite of addiction is connection." Now, this is not my quote. It's from the 2016 TED Talk by Johann Hari titled, "Everything You Think You Know About Addiction is Wrong." Basically, he says the opposite of addiction isn't sobriety, it's connection. You guys, life is complicated, but it's also not. The issues we are seeing today, and addiction is a big one, this all stems from one word: disconnection. The village, the community, the tribe has been completely destroyed in the last couple hundred years, and this messes with us big time. Okay, the opposite of addiction is connection. But what exactly are we connecting to? The big one here is yourself. If you're disconnected within, everything in your outside world will be fractured also. That's a universal law. So yes, you're connecting with yourself, and that's a huge one. The next big one, which happens after you connect with yourself, is you then connect with other human beings. Now, these are major vital steps forward for a functioning and healthy human being. But this takes work. It takes practice because our connection muscles have atrophied since we used booze for a long time for connection. And we also were told we get connection on social media, but we also know that doesn't deliver. So it takes work. And here's another type of connection that dropping the bottle can present that might be the biggest one yet. And I realized this about 6 months ago and was like, whoa, addiction might be the answer. I've always loved to go camping. And when I was drinking and went camping, one of the first things I would do, well, after cracking a beer, would go get firewood. I would just start chopping Dead or alive, it didn't matter. If it was close to the fire ring, it was going down. And the same thing with my tent. If there was a tree or a bush in the middle of where I was going to put my tent, sayonara, you're gone. Today, the thought of cutting down a live tree for such a trivial purpose actually gives me a physical pang inside of me. I can't do it. I won't. It's been over 11 years since I quit drinking, and it's been roughly the same amount of time that I've cut down a pine tree to put inside my house for only 4 weeks to then discard it with the trash. This would be a Christmas tree. I can't do it. I won't do it. It physically hurts me. So it's this reconnection with nature or the natural world that we must rebuild, and we are always invited to do so when we quit drinking. Native elders would say the best way to heal someone would be to heal their relationship with the land. Think about that one. So life is complicated, but it's also not. You are nature. So there's no coincidence as our war against nature intensifies, so do ailments such as addictions, chronic pain, depression, and anxiety disorders. It's that simple. We are being called home, and it's a beautiful thing. So how do you build this connection with nature or the natural world? I've got good news for you. You are the natural world. So this separation is false from the first place, and it's a mind-created fiction. So go outside, read a book outside, download the Merlin Bird app, and learn the birds that call your neighborhood home. I hope you've all enjoyed today's intro. Next week in 583, we're going to talk about the best thing that has ever happened to big alcohol. And before we hear from Ron, this is an ad from BetterHelp. Let's talk financial stress. Financial stress affects far more than our bank accounts. It can take a serious toll on mental health and relationships. And with 88% of Americans feeling some form of financial stress at the start of 2026, this is a big deal. To complicate matters, so many people have their identity tied to a number in their bank account, or how much money they have, or they compare themselves to others who might have more. None of this is good for our mental health or our nervous system. I want to mention that BetterHelp has 30,000 therapists and is the world's largest online therapy platform. They have an average rating of 4.9 out of 5 stars for live sessions based off 1.7 million client reviews. Talking it out always helps. When life feels overwhelming, therapy can help. Sign up and get 10% off at betterhelp.com/elevator. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/elevator. Ron, how are you?
I'm doing great, Paul. Thanks for asking.
Right on, Ron. I'm pumped to be here with you and to learn more about your story. Let's get right into this. When was your last drink, Ron?
It was February 19th, 2026.
Yeah, 29 days away from your last drink. We'll call it a month, February 19th. We're recording on March 19th. Heck yeah, my friend. How do you feel?
I feel great. I feel alive, energized.
Right
I feel like I'm on the right path.
And before I hit record, we chatted a bit. And previously, you have had 13 months and 15-month stints away from alcohol, but you said it feels different this time. I can't wait to hear later in the interview about why, what you're going to do different, what you learned from the past to apply to the future. But before we do that, give listeners a little background about yourself, Ron. This is your age, where you're calling in from, what does your professional and family life look like? And then most importantly, what do you like to do for fun, Ron?
Yeah, I'm 67 years old. I live in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I'm the president of a large restaurant company. We own 73 restaurants. I own a bunch of restaurants myself in the fast casual space. I'm married to the woman of my dreams and have been for 12 years. Her name is Denise. We'll find out a little bit more about her because she's connected to my story in a powerful way. 2 grown-up kids and 5 beautiful grandkids. 2 dogs, Zoe and Bowie, Shih Tzu Bichon mixes. And for fun, I love to travel. I love to read, play golf, and spend time with my family.
Ron, what is the fast casual space for a restaurant?
It's, I guess, for those in it, we consider it a be kind of a higher quality food than fast food. It's still fast in and out. Places like Qdoba and Dave's Hot Chicken and Chipotle and noodles and places like that. So that's considered the fast casual space. Fast, casual, but maybe a little bit better than fast food.
Yeah, I'm a fan of most of those that you just mentioned. I don't know all of
Yeah.
them, or it probably would be all of them. And 73 restaurants, did I hear that right?
Yeah. Hmm.
Oh my gosh. And listeners who are trying to get sober, who are in the service industry, I spent a lot of my professional life in the service industry. It is a challenge, but it's definitely possible. And I have a good feeling that Ron is going to share about that. And he's a prime example of yes, it is possible. Well, Ron, let's do what we came here to do. I'm going to turn it over to you with your story into and out of the drinking problem. Go for it. I'll jump in with questions when needed, and I'm excited.
Yeah, I think my first drink, like many, was when I was a teenager. It was very occasional. Can't really say I enjoyed it that much or was drawn to it. And really, I think for most of my adult life, I was a non-drinker or very moderate drinker. Certainly didn't have an unhealthy relationship with alcohol. And so I'm 67 years old. And so for me, that was really until I was 52. And at 52, everything changed. In 2010, my relationship with alcohol changed significantly. I was going through a divorce and I opened a sports bar, a really bad combination relative to alcohol and addiction. And so I was at the sports bar a lot, buying shots and doing shots and interacting with customers. And somewhere along the line, I started drinking a drink called a rusty nail, which, the name should give you pause. There's nothing really sexy about a rusty nail, old, used, tired, ready to be discarded. But that was my drink of choice. And the way I mixed that was with half Johnny Walker Black. Johnny would become my friend for many, many years, and Drambuie. So that went from as a single person kind of living that life and being at a sports bar. I went from a non drinker to kind of a daily drinker really, really quick. I loved it for a couple of years. It just worked in my life. I think I didn't even contemplate that I had a drinking problem, even though I was drinking 6 to 10 drinks a day, every day. I thought I was a professional drinker, that I was more sophisticated, that because I was drinking hard liquor and not beer, that and perhaps because it wasn't a problem in my life for most of my life. I mean, it wasn't a thing until it became a thing.
I want to jump in and highlight something for listeners here. And addiction is so complicated. The most brilliant minds of the East and the West have tried to figure out what it is. But you said you were cruising along until age 52 and there was a traumatic life stressor. I think you said it was divorce. And so sometimes people are like, oh, is it genetic? Is it environmental? Might be a little of both. But I can tell you after doing 582 interviews that you're cruising along and then there's a significant life stressor, a divorce, loss of a job, loss of a family member, anything of that level, and then drinking, boom. And if there's one thing that we've heard with regularity since 2020 is, and then COVID hit, and a pandemic absolutely qualifies as a life stressor. You're doing awesome, Ron. Keep going.
That became my routine for 15 years, really. Nightly drinking. I wasn't a day drinker except on the weekends with morning bloodies and things like that. But mainly my drinking started about 6 p.m. and continued until I passed out drunk. And that was my drinking pattern for the next 15 years. My best friend was Johnny Walker. And the last thing that hit my lips before I went to bed every night, not just like 5 nights a week, every night, was the rim of the glass that contained straight Johnny Walker Black. And it really went unexamined. Again, professional, I was doing well, it wasn't impacting my work. Sure, I'd wake up with hangovers, but I was also running marathons, half marathons with top 10% of my age group. I was working out. I felt like had things under control. But I realized in 2012 that, after probably way too many hangovers, that I needed to moderate. And that journey then of moderation began for 8 years of trying to moderate. I mean, I never even contemplated quitting. I mean, it was enjoyable at some level. I thought I could control it like I can in most of my life and most of the things in my life. And so I set daily goals and weekly goals and yearly goals and every possible scenario of moderation. I tried, from every guardrail, from weekends to certain days of the week to certain number of drinks and all that. And none of it worked at all.
Ron, when did you realize none of these are working?
I was a slow learner, I guess, maybe in 2020 when I said, oh shit, 8 years of hitting my head against the wall. I got married in 2014. My wife at that point was a social drinker, certainly didn't drink in excess. I continued to drink. Again, most of the people in my life, not most, everyone in my life would not have known I was a drinker. I really didn't drink much when I was out. When I was out, I didn't like being sloppy. I didn't like losing control. And so pretty much my drinking was compartmentalized. I would drink when we were out, but never to excess, never to losing control. Certainly, I drank to excess to where I shouldn't have been behind the wheel and was at times, but it was compartmentalized. And for that reason, I felt like it was managed. At some point, I realized, hey, passing out and getting drunk every night, like every night, is not healthy. It's not good for my body. It's not good for my mind. It's not good for my soul. And moderation wasn't working. So in January 5th of 2020, I said, tired of being tired type of thing, and said, I'm going to quit. I think maybe I read a book, but realized that I needed to kind of remove it from my life. You've used the terms a dry drunk, and that's what I was for that. That continued for about 15 months, 13 months, I guess, the first time.
So you said on January 5th, 2020, you went on 13 months, you read a book, and you were dry drunk. Do I hear that? Do I have this right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I was journaling every day, and journaling is super important to me. I still, journal every morning. And that was helpful to keep it in front of me. I kept logs of where I was in the journey, how many days I was into my recovery. I was somewhat mindful, but I certainly didn't have the layers that I would know that I would need later if I was going to maintain it. I think, after that 13 months, I was tired of kind of being lonely and being the only person in the room not drinking. My wife hadn't quit at that point. So everywhere we went, alcohol was around me.
Ron, let me
Yeah,
jump in and ask, during that 13 months, was there some benefits like mental clarity? Did you physically feel better?
I did. I really did. Not the benefits that I'm experiencing now, because I think I have a greater realization of all the destruction that alcohol can bring. And so I didn't have a full appreciation of what it had been doing to my body. But certainly I was healthier. I was more active every morning. I'd wake up when I was drinking feeling numb, and that was gone. And so there were huge benefits. But again, it wasn't enough to hold me. And so I think I was in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, and I said, give me a margarita. And within, I don't know, 2 weeks, I was back to my 6 to 10 drinks every night. Johnny was revisited me.
Listeners, I want to highlight another consistency on this podcast. When there is an abstinence of time and we go back to it, it's like boom. For Ron, it's for 2 weeks. For me, it was overnight. For many, we go right back to where we were drinking those levels within a week, 2 weeks, maybe a month.
Yeah, so that went on for a while. And then in September of 2022, I quit drinking again. And this time, I think it lasted 15 months. My program, same, a dry drunk. So no reading, no meetings, no podcasts, no community, no connection, nobody along in that journey with me. And again, it worked for a while until it didn't work. And at some point, I guess I got fatigued of just kind of the willpower that kept me there. And so in January of 2024, I started drinking again. And much like the first go around, it ramped up really, really quickly, like immediately. And now I want to kind of shift a little bit and bring my wife in, and she's giving me permission to tell a little bit of her story because it connects with mine. But during the pandemic, I think both of us drank a lot. We golfed, and part of our activity was to hang around the bar afterwards and drink. And so she went from being a moderate drinking to being a heavy drinker. And in 2024, I started seeing her as maybe having a challenge relationship with alcohol, more so than me. Not that I didn't, I clearly did. Her drinking was a little bit different. In 2025, she started in the morning and wouldn't stop until she blacked out, passed out.
Ron, let
And
me ask the question. So you saw her again after a pandemic, big life stressor, her drinking changed. And you said
right,
maybe she has a drinking issue here. Did she see you in the same way during your stints of 13 and 15 months? If she was asked to be like, does Ron have a drinking problem? Did she approach you with that?
no, she never really did. Again, I managed the drinking in a way that didn't demonstrate itself. When we went out, it didn't become a problem. I didn't have any issues with relationships or work or DUIs or anything like that. And that was, I think, part of my problem. Literally, I consider myself, it was naive, it was stupid, it was silly. Looking back on it, it was absolutely moronic, but I consider myself some level of professional drinker, that I could handle it, that it didn't play out like it did for other people. And so nobody called me on it ever. And I think that's why it went on for so long, because it was compartmentalized. It was a problem. I mean, getting drunk every night is a problem.
So Ron, you
Yeah,
eventually called yourself out on this, which is a
yeah.
major move. It's a gangster move because 90% of people don't call themselves out, right? It's denial. It's the first most formidable obstacle that we all have to overcome. It's a step one of AA, right? It's the only step that has to be mastered. When did that voice, which began calling you out more and more, and give yourself some credit, man, you listened, 13 months AF, 15 months AF. And I heard in your voice kind of a pejorative tone to yourself, like I was a dry drunk. All I was doing was journaling. Journaling's big time. I love journaling. But through those trials, if you drink again, we're just collecting data and field research. And another similarity, Ron, is that almost everybody on this podcast, including myself, follows that same trajectory. You beat your head against the wall for 8 years with moderation. I probably did it for the same amount of time too. Two episodes, a guy named Harvey, I think it was 37 years or 27 years when he first realized, like he first called himself out. 37 years later, he drank. So when did that voice calling yourself out get so loud? You're like, we're doing this and we're not looking back.
Yeah, that didn't happen until I think Denise really came clear with her drinking. In the middle of 2025, I was continuing to drink. Her drinking had ramped up. She was drinking at 5 in the morning. I didn't know that until later, until again she blacked out, passed out. At which point I would start to drink. She would pass out, black out at 6:30 in the evening, and that's when I would start. And so our marriage really began to take some hits. We weren't communicating, we weren't connected. We were married, but not living the marriage that I think both of us signed up for and both of us had for a long time. And I started talking to her about getting help. First, I started talking to her about moderation. Like I wasn't connecting the dots. It didn't work for me forever and a day. And yet here I was kind of counseling her on moderation, like it was going to be different for somebody else.
We're both
Uh,
smiling here on that one.
yeah, yeah, and it wasn't. And she tried, and it didn't work. And she had gone through a bunch of stuff with her business, and there was some trauma in her life that caused her drinking to ramp up. But I was talking to her about going and getting help. And at some point she said, yeah, I need help. I need help to get this out of my life. And so in January 19 of 2026, this year, she checked herself into a 30-day inpatient rehab. And I think when I dropped her off, I'm not sure that I saw our marriage working, even though I had this unhealthy relationship with alcohol. Our relationship had really deteriorated. I mean, there wasn't infidelity or anything like that, but we just weren't connecting in the way that two loving people ought to. And I wasn't sure that rehab was going to work. And that day I contacted a lawyer, a divorce lawyer, and just exploring whether that was the path that, depending on what happened in rehab.
Ron, I don't know the details of your marriage, but last week's interview, Lydia had a great line where her number one relationship was with alcohol. And usually what happens, what I've seen is, yeah, you two are in a loving marriage, supposedly, but your best relationship is not each other, it's alcohol. Oh, yeah, you drop her off at rehab. If my math is correct, that's 30 days before your sobriety date, and rehab days or dates are
Yeah.
like 30, 60, 90. When she came out, was there a declaration of accountability that you two were going to walk together, or did you have a rock bottom moment the night before?
About 3 days after her detox period, I was able to see her and I saw the woman that I married. And I canceled the appointment with the lawyer and said, oh my gosh, this can be wonderful. This can be magical. This is the person that I fell in love with.
3 days after her detox, or you dropped her off through the detox process, you saw the woman you loved, right? Alcohol is a spirit that removes the essence of our soul. It is a mind and body eating spirit. That's what it means in many languages. And on strip malls in America, it's beer, wine, and spirits. Once that spirit alcohol left her body, I'm guessing the light returned to her eyes.
1,000%.
Okay.
That's exactly what happened. Literally. And then she carried on and it was doing work and we were seeing each other regularly. And all during that time in her 30 days, I was continuing my relationship with Johnny, but knowing that I had to figure that out, really knowing that I had to quit. If I loved her and I loved our marriage and I did, and I wanted that to be everything that it could be, I knew that I'd have to get real with my own journey and it would have to be different when she came home. And so probably from the third day that she was in, I was like, okay, I'm going to need to quit and get real and get back on my sobriety path. And I waited. I waited until the day that she got out. Somewhere along the line, I removed 150 bottles of liquor that we had in our liquor storage room and prepared myself mentally for that. But literally, she got out on a Thursday. My last drink was on Wednesday. And so she's 30 days ahead of me. And so I think she's on day 59. I'm on day 29.
And hopefully that
And
never changes, right?
and hopefully that never changes. That's the intent. But it feels different this time. Doing it with somebody that you love and care for and leaning into supporting and encouraging one another and then doing the work and putting on the layers of things that I didn't put on before has made a huge difference this time.
That is so powerful, Ron. And the questions that are arriving into my consciousness, you directly answered them afterward. It was, how are you mentally preparing yourself for this? But let me ask that again. How did you mentally prepare yourself for that while your wife, all right, she's out in 28 days. She's out in 27, 26, 25. Oh, she's out in 5 days. My last drink is coming up. What was that scenario like?
I probably avoided kind of facing it until the end, but really I kind of looked forward to it. I knew how I felt in the previous two times. I knew it would be different with somebody on that journey with me. By that time, I'd kind of learned what she was learning. I was regularly visiting her for an hour or two stint during the time that she was there, and she was sharing what she was learning. I was beginning to read, listen to podcasts. And so I think my education about alcohol addiction, how it overlay with my journey, what I needed to do was beginning to emerge and change and become a fuller, complete understanding of what I needed to do. And so by the time she got out, really, I was ready. And I think the first 2 days were sleep was shit. Looking back, I hallucinated those first 2 days at night. I mean, I didn't know in the moment that I was doing it, but probably 3 or 4 days later, when I was doing some reading, I was like, oh shit, I was hallucinating. But outside of that, I'm so committed to sobriety, to us. I quit drinking for me. I started going to therapy and we're going to a marriage counselor. So we're doing a lot of things right, I think, together, individually. But I realized that I had to layer on some things that gave me a better chance. But I was committed. And beyond that kind of first 2 days, I don't want to say it hasn't been a problem, but maybe it hasn't been a problem because I'm so committed. I told her that I quit for me first, I think for our marriage second, and for her third. I think that's the order that I need to keep it in. This is my journey. She has her journey. We're married, and our journeys are woven together in a really powerful, cool way that allows us to lean into each other. And yet it is an individual journey. And so I realized that.
Ron, that's two interviews in a row where someone said I had to quit for myself. And you hear that all the time. And absolutely, if you quit for somebody else, you start to build resentments. Now, I think in our conversation before we hit record, there was something about how will it be different this time? And you said you're not doing it alone. I think that is the missing component for everybody. Talk to us about how you plan to move forward and not do it alone.
Yeah, I was completely naive about the community that existed in sobriety, the resources, the people that you could lean in and lean on. I thought AA was for the drunk guy under the bridge. It wasn't for me. And so I think through her journey, I was realizing the power of connection and how important that was. And so we've begun to lean into that. There's a great community out there. I signed up for RE Elevator. We've gone to SMART meetings. We've gone to AA meetings. I think that process is ongoing. We're still trying to connect with our tribe, but we've had some powerful, powerful meetings. I think earlier this week, we went to an AA meeting that brought tears to my eyes. Even as I think about it now, it was just so powerful. The honesty, the transparency, the ability to connect at a deep level very, very quickly with people that shared your addiction. And so that's going to be a big part of what makes it different this time is the community, the connection, the understanding that you're not doing it alone.
Ron, let me tell you and listeners who AA is for. And let me tell you who Cafe RE is for. Smart Recovery, Refuge Recovery, all those recovery meetings. It's for the human being who is seeking honest connections. That's what they're for. And that's all human beings. And this is why we are a lucky group of people is we have that safe space. We have that space where we can show up as ourselves. And you know what? That's a requirement of those spaces. It's a requirement for you to show up as you are, who you are in this moment, and be honest about whatever time frame it is away from your last drink. Because at the end of the day, everybody in the room knows we're all on the same day. That's the day we find ourselves in. That's why I think we are a group of people that have to leverage the drinking problem because the village has been completely destroyed in the last 200 years, the community. Those structures are just gone. A studio apartment, that's a horrible idea. And that wasn't on the docket or on the table as a living option 100 years ago. It wasn't. And human beings think we need a lot of space, but biologically we don't. We crave to be next to our fellow human being. I got a question about the service industry. You said you own 73 restaurants. I owned one tapas bar in Spain and it cooked me. I was toast in my early 20s. In fact, we got rid of the tapas pretty quick and just focused on alcohol. Higher margins, less work, less prepping. We didn't need a microwave. In your restaurants, are you open about your recovery? Are you someone that somebody can go to? Because I can guarantee it, and you know that somebody at your establishment's working for you is struggling with alcohol. I don't know if you guys sell alcohol at any of those places, but do people know that, big man Ron is on the sobriety path?
Yeah, that's a great question. First of all, we don't sell alcohol in our restaurants. And so we could, but we don't. That's not really our sweet spot. So that hasn't been a problem. I think in one of your books, you tell that powerful story about the conquistador that left Cuba in 1590 and went to Mexico to conquer the Aztec nation and burned the ships. And there was a period about 10 days ago where I gave a speech to 80 of my leaders about growth and development and progress and how change occurs. And somewhere along the line, I burned the ship in that conversation. And it was transparent and talked about probably not in the detail that I'm going through now. It wasn't necessary, but I said I had unhealthy relationship with alcohol, that it was nightly. And so I burned the ship in front of 80 of my leaders. It was refreshing. It was therapeutic. It was an important part of the process. And so that concept of, hey, don't turn back. Isn't any options. Be accountable to other people. Let people know where you're at in the journey. I think that's really, really important. And so I did that and felt really good about it.
How many of them quit after hearing that?
Zero.
Yeah, no
Yeah.
kidding.
Yeah, that level of transparency, I think people appreciate. Again, we talk about AA and the different kinds of meetings. I think that level of openness and trust and transparency and vulnerability is something I've never seen anywhere in life, in any forum in any group of people that I've encountered. And so when you do encounter, it's so refreshing. And no matter if you're on that journey or not on that journey, I think most people embrace that authenticity. When somebody says, hey, here's who I am, I'm okay with it. And I think when you're that way, most people say, that's pretty darn cool, whether they decide to join your journey or have that problem or whatever. A number of people came up to me afterwards and said, boy, I really appreciate that. And my guess is in that room, I don't know. There's some people that probably have an unhealthy relationship with alcohol or some addiction. And I also believe in this concept of paying it forward. And that's what you did when you started this podcast. How can I help my own journey, but how can I pay it forward? How can I help the community of other people struggling? And so that's something that's really beginning to emerge. I understand that's a really important part of everybody's journey. It's an important part of my journey. I don't know how that's going to play out in the future exactly, but I'm leaning into it. I'm open to hearing. I'm excited about that emerging.
Ron, time has just flown by. I've loved hearing your story, and we have hit the rapid fire round. If you could answer these questions within 5 to 10 seconds, that would be great. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, man. Now that Johnny Walker has been sidelined, what are you drinking these days?
I am drinking my drink of choice, believe it or not, is Diet A&W root beer.
That's a first, man. That's it.
Yeah.
Diet A&W root beer. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. With a lime or anything?
No, just straight out of the bottle. Nothing sexy about it. It hits the spot.
That's awesome. What's been your best sober moment?
I think just the strong connections with my wife, the feelings of love and appreciation, and all those things have flooded back in a big, big way. And they're really emerging in a way that's exciting and beautiful and powerful. And those are happening every day. And I'm loving it.
What's the one thing you've learned about yourself, Ron?
I think I'm a more loving person in giving without alcohol.
What's the point of life?
For me, it's to learn, to grow, and to love others.
What's your favorite 80s band?
I tell you what, I passed the 80s. I was working really hard, but I think my favorite band of all time is probably the Beatles. Maybe today it's the Zac Brown Band.
Chicken Fried.
Yeah, you got it.
And then what parting piece of guidance can you tell somebody who wants to quit drinking?
I think do the things that I didn't do, which is seek help. There's a community. Reach out to the community. There's people that want to be on that journey with you that can help. The path of doing this alone, I don't know, maybe it's possible, but it's certainly a whole heck of a lot harder. Lean into people.
And before we depart, Ron, you might need to ditch the booze if. Let's hear it.
You might need to ditch the booze if on every vacation you go on, internationally or domestic, the first stop you make is at a liquor or grocery store so you can stock up on alcohol for the hotel.
Yep, check. I know so many listeners are like, yep, check, done it. And I ruined my last 15 vacations. We're in the right spot, Ron. So good to be here with you. And thank you so much for sharing your story to the best audience on the internet. Thank you, Ron.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank our production team for today's episode. We have our editor, Natasha, Robin on the show notes, and Chris on the decks putting it all together. Recovery elevator. We took the elevator down. We got to take the stairs back up. We can do this.
I see you savor, I see you savor, almighty savor, I see you savor, I see you savor, I see you savor, almighty savor, I see you savor.